For most of my adult life, I told myself I just liked the quiet, that I was one of those people who didn't need others the way most people did. I even felt a little superior about it. Independence, I called it. But the truth? That was just a story I told myself to avoid something much harder. In this video, I want to share how I slowly came to realize that what I called peace was actually fear, and how it cost me more than I ever admitted out loud. My days used to follow a simple rhythm. Wake up, coffee, commute, work in IT, head down, minimal small talk, come home, maybe a book, maybe a show, no noise, no mess. I thought I'd cracked the code to a low-stress life. Even weekends had a kind of predictable comfort, grocery run, lawn care, the odd errand. I told myself I was content. I had my routines, and they worked. I didn't feel like I was missing anything. People talked about connection, about community, but those things sounded exhausting to me. I figured I'd just been wired differently, someone who functioned best in stillness. And for a long time, I truly believed that was all there was to it. I saw myself as calm, focused, independent. I wasn't lonely, just self-contained. That's what I told myself. I even prided myself on not needing people. I watched coworkers get wrapped up in drama, family obligations. I didn't envy it. Not really. I'd hear them vent in the break room, arguments with partners, messy dinners with in-laws, and I'd think, thank God I don't have to deal with that. I thought being unbothered meant I was ahead of the game, that I'd matured past all the emotional noise, and when friends faded away, I chalked it up to time, distance, the way life goes. But deep down, I think I knew it wasn't that simple. A birthday dinner here, a weekend trip there. Over the years, I got invited less and less because I kept saying no, sometimes with an excuse, sometimes just silence. I'm not really a group person, I'd say. It felt honest at the time. I didn't want to be the one standing awkwardly at the edge of a room, trying to join conversations that had already started. I didn't want to risk feeling left out. So I stayed home. I convinced myself that solitude was strength, that declining things gave me control. But those decisions added up. One by one, the bridges thinned, until eventually there were very few left to cross. I noticed things but brushed them off, like how I'd go days without talking to anyone, or how the idea of someone dropping by unannounced filled me with dread. I told myself it was just introversion, a personality quirk, nothing to worry about. I ignored how heavy the silence started to feel, how my heart would race when the phone rang, or how I hesitated to reach out, afraid I wouldn't know what to say, or worse, that they wouldn't pick up. I kept thinking I was fine, that nothing was wrong, but a quiet life can hide a lot. And the more I ignored those signs, the more isolated I became without even realizing it. I retired at 61. No big party. I didn't want one. I walked out of the office with a cardboard box and a vague sense of relief. No more meetings, no more noise, no more people. I thought finally, I get to live the way I want. The first few weeks felt like freedom. I slept in, read more, ate when I felt like it. But then the days started to stretch. One bled into the next. With no co-workers, no schedule, no small interactions, the silence got louder. That's when it started to hit me. Maybe this peace I'd been chasing wasn't peace at all. At first, it was peaceful. Then it got empty. I'd wake up and there was nowhere to be. No one expecting me. No calls, no emails. Days passed without speaking a word out loud. I didn't realize it right away, but the quiet started to feel different. Not restful, hollow. I'd find myself turning on the TV just for voices in the background. Even a commercial break felt like company. I still kept my routines, coffee, lunch, evening walk, but they began to feel like placeholders, like I was just passing time, not living in it. I'd spent so many years saying I liked the quiet, but now that it was all I had, I wasn't so sure anymore. I started noticing other people, couples walking, friends at the park, even noisy teenagers. Something about it stirred something in me. Not envy, exactly, more like a quiet ache. I'd sit on a bench with my coffee and watch people greet each other, laugh, argue, make plans. It reminded me that life was still happening, just not around me. And yet, every time I felt that tug in my chest, I pushed it down. I told myself I'd chosen this, that I was better off without the messiness, but I'd linger a little longer in public places, not to talk, just to be near it. Connection. It had become something I observed, not something I participated in. I still clung to the same explanation. I'm just not a social person. It was my shield, my fallback. I didn't question it, not deeply. It was too familiar, too easy. But something inside me was starting to shift. I felt restless in ways I didn't know how to name. Small moments would catch me off guard. A stranger's smile, an old photo, a voicemail I'd forgotten to delete. I'd get this strange tightness in my chest. I didn't talk about it, not even to myself. But the story, the one where I didn't need anyone, started to feel thin, like something I'd outgrown but didn't know how to take off. One morning I sat down for breakfast and realized it had been 5 days since I'd spoken to another human being. 5. Not a word, not a nod at the store. Nothing. I laughed at first. It seemed absurd, like something out of a novel, but the laugh caught in my throat. What I felt wasn't funny. It was fear. A deep, disorienting fear. Not of being alone, but of what it meant. Of how easy it had become. How normal. That morning, the silence didn't feel like a choice anymore. It felt like something that had taken over. I finished my toast, washed the plate, and just stood there at the sink, staring, not knowing what to do next. Being a technical guy, I approached it like a problem. I made a list, join a book club, call an old coworker, try volunteering. I thought, I can troubleshoot this, patch it up. I did one of those things. I joined a local group that met on Wednesdays. I showed up once, sat through the meeting, tried to smile, nod, but the whole time I felt like an imposter, exposed, awkward, like I'd landed in a country where I didn't speak the language. I left early, told myself it just wasn't the right fit. But truthfully, I was terrified, not of them, of being seen, of someone noticing how unsure I felt. I realized I hadn't just lost connection, I'd lost the muscle for it. Old memories started resurfacing, invitations I turned down, people I pushed away, birthdays, weddings, even small things like coffee catch-ups. I thought I was just guarding my time, keeping things simple. But I see now I was slowly building a wall. I realized I had no one I could really call, not without it feeling awkward, like I was showing up late to a party that had already ended. I'd become a familiar stranger in so many lives. All those years I thought I was choosing freedom, but it wasn't freedom. It was distance, and distance doesn't protect you. It just makes it harder to find your way back. I ran into a neighbor one day. She's lived across the hall for years. We made some small talk and she asked how I was doing. I said, fine, just like I always do. Then she looked at me, not unkindly, and said, you always seem so alone. I don't think she meant anything by it, but it hit me harder than I expected. I walked back to my apartment and sat down, keys still in my hand. That word, alone, echoed in my head, because it wasn't just how I seemed, it was how I was. And maybe I'd known it for a long time. I just didn't want anyone else to see it. Lonely. I hated that word. It sounded weak, desperate, not the kind of thing a grown man is supposed to admit to, especially one who's spent decades convincing himself he didn't need much from other people. But the more I sat with it, the more it felt true. I was lonely, not in the dramatic movie scene kind of way, but in the quiet, creeping kind, the kind that seeps in over time and makes everything feel a little dimmer. Not because I didn't have people around, but because I didn't let anyone in. I kept everything on the surface, safe, controlled. And in doing that, I locked myself out of a kind of warmth I didn't even realize I missed. I started thinking about where it all began. It wasn't retirement. It wasn't even adulthood. It was childhood. I was the quiet kid, the one who stayed in his room, the one who got praised for being low maintenance. I learned early on to swallow feelings, to stay small. I remember being told, "Don't take things so personally," or "You've got to toughen up." So I did. I got good at not needing, at staying on the sidelines. I see now I wasn't just quiet, I was protecting myself. From rejection, from judgment, from the risk of opening up. I didn't want to be left out, so I left myself out first. That was the hardest part, untangling the story I'd lived by. For so long, I thought I just preferred solitude, that it was a choice. But it wasn't really a preference. It was fear. Fear of vulnerability. Fear of being truly seen, and maybe not liked. Fear of needing something I couldn't guarantee. Every time I chose silence over conversation or distance over closeness, I thought I was being smart, calm, mature, independent. But really, I was protecting myself from the unknown, from the risk of connection. And in doing that, I missed out on things that matter more than I ever let myself admit. I didn't wake up one day and suddenly become a people person. That's not how it works, at least not for me. But I started trying. I said yes to a walk when a neighbor asked. I stayed 5 extra minutes after a small group meeting at church. I commented on someone's book at the library instead of just nodding and walking past. These were tiny things, but they took effort, real effort. I had to sit with the awkwardness, the vulnerability. The old part of me wanted to retreat, but something else, maybe hope, told me to stay a little longer. And slowly, bit by bit, it got easier. There was a moment I'll never forget. During a group check-in, someone asked how I was really doing. I could have brushed it off, but something cracked open, and I said it out loud. I don't think I know how to be close to people anymore. My voice shook. I looked down, embarrassed, but no one laughed. No one changed the subject. One man reached over and gently put a hand on my shoulder. That was the first time I cried in front of someone in over 30 years, and instead of shame, I felt relief, like something long frozen had finally started to thaw. For most of my life, I thought keeping things to myself made me strong, stoic, in control. But I see now, all that control was just fear in disguise. Real strength is allowing yourself to be seen, even if it's messy, even if it's unsure. Vulnerability isn't weakness. It's the bridge to belonging. I used to believe asking for help was admitting failure. Now I think it's one of the bravest things a person can do. Saying, "I need someone," doesn't make you broken. It makes you human. And when you let people see who you really are, not just the polished parts, that's when connection becomes possible. I still live alone. I still love the quiet. Mornings with coffee, a slow walk, the sound of birds outside my window. But the quiet feels different now. It's not hollow. It's not hiding. Because now, if I need to talk to someone, I know I can. If something good happens, I have someone to share it with. That quiet used to be a barrier. Now it's just peace. And knowing I have the option of closeness, knowing I'm not cut off, not unreachable, that changes the entire texture of my days. I'm not just surviving solitude anymore. I'm living in it, with connection close by. I used to think being independent meant needing no one, being impenetrable. I wore that like a badge of honor, but really, it was a kind of armor. I've come to see it differently. Real independence, to me now, is about choice. The choice to reach out, the freedom to build connections, not because you're desperate, but because you want to, because you value people, not just as a safety net, but as something that enriches life. I'm still capable of being on my own, but I no longer believe that aloneness is a virtue by itself. It's the relationships I choose that make me stronger. If I could sit across from my younger self, that quiet kid with his walls up, I'd say this: you're not wrong for wanting closeness. You're not weak for needing people. That ache you feel, that's not something to ignore. It's a signal. I'd tell him not to wait until the silence becomes a burden. That protecting yourself from pain is understandable, but it shouldn't come at the cost of love, friendship, and simple human warmth. I'd tell him connection is worth the risk, and that it's never too late to learn how to open up, even if it starts with just a single conversation. For a long time, I believed I'd missed my chance, that I had built my life in such a way that change was no longer possible. I used to look back and think, well, this is just how it is now. But that's not true. Connection doesn't care how old you are. It doesn't care if you've spent decades keeping people at arm's length. All it asks for is honesty. And once I started showing up, not perfectly, not all at once, just honestly, people responded. In the past 2 years, I've had more meaningful conversations than I did in the 20 before that. It's not too late. It never was. These days, I have a small circle, a few people I trust. I still need quiet. I still need space, but it's different now. I don't use space to disappear. I use it to rest. And when I feel strong enough, I reach out. I let people in, not just for the good days either. I let them see me when I'm tired, when I'm unsure. That used to terrify me. Now it feels like something I've earned, not just their company, but the right to be real around them. It's not about fixing everything. It's about finally allowing myself to be known. If you're watching this and thinking, this sounds a bit like me, I just want to say, be careful with the word fine. I used that word for years. It was my shield. It meant, don't ask, don't get too close. But the thing about fine is, it keeps everything on the surface. It keeps you distant, even from yourself. So if fine is what you always say, ask yourself what you really mean. Not out loud, not yet, just quietly, to yourself. Sometimes fine is just fear with a better wardrobe. You don't have to wait until the silence becomes unbearable. You can start sooner. I spent most of my life telling myself I didn't need anyone, that I was fine alone, that I liked the quiet. But the truth I almost never said, not even to myself, was this. I wasn't avoiding people. I was avoiding fear. The fear of being seen and not accepted. The fear of reaching out and being met with nothing. But once I faced that, once I let even a sliver of light in, everything changed. I didn't lose myself. I found something I never thought I'd have again. I found people, and in them, I found a version of peace I never knew existed. Before you go, I just want to say, if any part of this felt familiar, you're not alone. I used to think I was the only one who struggled to reach out, to be seen. But I've learned that connection often begins in silence and grows when we share it. If this resonated with you, feel free to like the video or subscribe. It helps this reach others who might be quietly wrestling with the same things. And I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Have you ever mistaken independence for avoidance? What's one moment you wish you hadn't pulled away? And if this spoke to you, I think you'll appreciate Robert's story about the fear of looking foolish and how it almost kept him from the one thing that made him feel alive. You can watch it right here.